Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to host today a very experienced guest, Marc, to discuss the state of autonomous vehicle deployment across the globe. Marc has a lot of experience in mobility, and he will tell you a little bit more about his company. I'm myself, I am Pierre Maillot, responsible for business development and technologies partnership at Heex. What we will discuss today will be a first, let's say, overview about AV deployment. AV as first autonomous driving as a technology. There are different applications, and then there will be a focus on robotaxis, since there are a lot of things happening in the US, in China, in Europe, and Marc will give us some insight. In parallel to that, we'll see how data management can still become a challenge to accelerate that deployment from a technical standpoint, also regulatory. So I'm very happy to host this 7 webinar for Heex Technologies and to welcome Marc. Before I let him introduce himself and his company, I'm going to start the Q&A as usual, where you can start to ask questions that hopefully we will have time to address at the end of our presentation. Marc, welcome. Thanks again for joining us.
Pleasure to join you. Yeah, thank you very much, and hello to everyone online.
Maybe you can give a few words about yourself, your company. I know we know each other for quite some time. We met in San Francisco in the Bay Area. A very interesting panel about mobility. It was already autonomous driving at that time. And I know that you are very well connected. So please tell the audience more about yourself.
Yes, thanks again, Pierre. So my name is Marc Amblard. I'm an automotive industry veteran. I've worked for 2 car manufacturers, a supplier. I've also worked a little bit in the rail sector, and I moved to Silicon Valley in 2017 to start my consulting business around AutoX, automotive technology, future of mobility. But because I realized that a lot was happening in the Valley in this space, be it autonomous driving at the time, electrification, and I saw a gap that was widening between the incumbent ecosystem and the startup base here in the Valley. So that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years, advising corporates, so OEMs, tier 1 suppliers, mobility companies, transportation businesses, on doing a lot of scouting of technology and startups. I have a database with about 5,000 companies across the space around the globe. So tracking things, everything that's innovation in automotive. Again, so electrification from battery to motors to power electronics to SDV, AI, to autonomous driving, so sensing, software, compute, connected services, and the like. And I'm also advisor to several startups in the Valley and in Europe. So that's what I've been doing. Also, I guess in something that should be of interest to a number of you is I've been publishing since 2016 a monthly newsletter that goes out to about 4,000 people today. So there are articles dedicated to specialize in specific domains of auto tech. So I've published so far just over 100. I just published the 102nd article last week. And I'm also working on the book around this same theme. So autonomous driving is obviously a key element of what I've been doing. And that's what we'd be talking about today.
Yeah.
So Pierre, if we can move to
Thank you. No, sure. I mean,
first slide.
I would recommend anyone who has not registered yet to register to the newsletter. Very informative newsletter about all the mobility trends. Autonomous driving is one of the big technology that has been shaping the last 20 years with a lot of promises and a lot of potential application. Marc, what can you tell us about this today?
Yeah. There's one thing, if you want to see, the newsletter is free, of course, and all the articles are available on alseconsulting.net. So you see the name at the top right corner here, alseconsulting.net. You find all the articles will be of interest to you. So autonomous driving is not new. This is something that people have been dreaming about for decades. It really came true in the late 2000s in the mining space, where a number of heavy-duty machinery in mines in Latin America starting to go live without a driver. And since that, a number of other domains have picked up the technology, and we'll discuss robotaxi today. But this is not the only other domain besides mining that is benefiting from autonomous driving. Agriculture is a big one. Construction is also picking up. Buses is emerging. Trucks is also available today so not yet without anyone in the cab, except for the middle mile, like the vehicle that's at the bottom center by Gatic that drives around without anyone in the cabin in Canada and the US. But today we'll focus on robotaxi. That's closer to most of us because this is a B2C business in the end. Without forgetting, though, the top left here, which is more ADAS, so advanced driving assistance systems, which is your level 2, level 3, which is getting very common, at least level 2 in passenger vehicles today. But again, we'll focus on level 4 robotaxi for the sake of this discussion today.
Yeah, thanks. And without spoiling the next phase, one of the thing that we will learn from you, Marc, is that there are a lot of disparities across the globe on how advanced this technology is being deployed. And one of the challenges that we see is linked to data management. There is a lot of data coming from these vehicles. Autonomy rely on a lot of sensors, camera, lidars, radar that are generating a massive amount of data. And this data, most of it is actually unstructured. And on top of this, there is an AI training curve that basically plateau at some point in order to collect new data to refresh your learning and be able to deploy your technology in a different environment. So a robotaxi that is operating in a specific city, if you want to take it and put it, for example, in Paris, then they would have to go through a new learning curve in order to adapt to the culture, to the traffic signal, to a lot of different things. So the scalability and the deployment of autonomy heavily relies on data, and that can be a bottleneck because it's really costly eventually to collect, process, and extract the meaningful data. Specifically, if you talk about autonomous driving, a car that is level 3, level 4 car, so a high level of autonomy, could generate up to 5 terabytes of data per hour. And then when you have to take all of this data, it's very often manually uploading rack or SD card from the car to the cloud, where there are teams that are going to do some triage. So triage means like some of the data will be used for machine learning. Some of the data will be used to debug specific incidents and issues. Some of the data will be used to update the map, and so on and so on. And that triage can also be very complicated and take a lot of time, where the value of doing the triage of the data eventually for a company is none, right? What you need to do is just get the right data to the right user. So all of that process is actually broken today because the amount of data that you need and the diversity of the data is really high. And at some point, basically, you are collecting data that has no value. It's just noise, and it costs a lot of money and time. So that complexity in terms of data collection with the complex unstructured data, very demanding data processing manpower and computing, also which has an impact on cost and also on ecological impact eventually. And then a lot of times wasted in extracting, filtering the data that the engineers need in order to further develop. So that's what we see from a challenge regarding data management. And now that Marc is going to give you some more details about projects that are working and so on, again, without spoiling everything that he's going to say, you're going to see that a lot of companies that have been successful today, they have a huge financial capacity to go and deal with big data and to deploy that, right? So,
yeah. So today, in some regions, and I guess certainly in Europe, where we don't have these vehicles, people think that autonomous driving is something for the future. Well, I can tell you that living in San Francisco, this is the present. And I would say it's the same in China as well. Just back to the point that Pierre was making about differences between regions. Certainly the US and China are ahead of the game. There are roughly 2,000 vehicles deployed today across the US, about 800 of them in San Francisco alone. And there are about also 2,000 deployed in China. Now, this number is increasing. I suspect by the end of 2026, we'll be at least at 4,000 in the US. I know that Waymo has another 2,000, almost 2,000 vehicles that they've been or retrofitting for the past 3 or 4 months. More Jaguar I-Paces like the one you see here in top picture, the white vehicle. That's the vehicle we see commonly here in San Francisco. And China is accelerating possibly faster. And I guess at this point I can highlight the players. What you can see on this image is pictures that I've taken myself in San Francisco. Top here is again the Waymo car that's available in 5 cities today in the US. And the little like a bread toaster on the left is a Zoox vehicle. So it's a Zoox is a company that was established in 2014, acquired by Amazon in 2000 for about $1 billion. So that's back to the numbers, the big numbers that are necessary, bigger dollar that are necessary to develop those technologies. So here you have Zoox that's not available yet. I've written in one a couple of times already, but it's not open to the public. Whereas Zoox has been open to the public for the past, say, 4 years now, 5 years, starting in Phoenix. We have at the bottom left here a Jaguar I-Pace, again, the one in the back, and the one in front of it, that's yellow, that's orange and white, is a GM Cruise. Cruise is a company that was established in 2015, acquired in 2017, I think, by GM, and then closed down in January last year, or January this year, sorry, because there was an issue, there was an accident in San Francisco, without going into details. So the company is closed down, and GM now is bringing it back under a different format. What you see on the right here is one vehicle. That's the one in the front is a Zoox test vehicle, and that's the one that type of vehicle we've seen in San Francisco for the past 4 or 5 years. Has been learning about the city to build the tech, and then cars 3 and 4 are 2 Waymo vehicles. As you can see, this is just a regular occurrence. Yesterday, I was driving around San Francisco. I probably saw 10 vehicles just in 15-minute drive. So this is common here. It is also common in China in about a dozen cities, with several players. Baidu, which is the equivalent of Google in China, has a subsidiary called Apollo Go, which is the leader there, which about 1,000 vehicles, I believe. Then you have Pony AI that has about 500 vehicles, WeRide, and so forth. So there, and that's it, I guess. No. Here, what you have on the screen is also the development of Waymo. Today, they are using Jaguar I-Paces. This is a vehicle that was jointly designed between Waymo and Zeekr, which is a subsidiary of Chinese OEM Geely. Vehicle that we start seeing in the city. These are pictures I took myself. Including the one inside the cabin at CES. And we should see these vehicles being open or available for the public in the coming months. And this is the future of Waymo, certainly here in the US. Waymo is also contracted with Hyundai. So they're collecting data from all these vehicles while operating rights. Waymo as of May, and they've not given any numbers since that, was operating 250,000 paid rides a week. 250,000 paid rides. That's about 1,000th of what Uber does globally, by the way. So this gives you an idea of the state of maturity. This is, again, not something of the future. This is today, whether it is here in San Francisco, but also in a few other cities. I'll have a map shortly to show you where the vehicle are deployed across the US. This is specifically across the Bay Area. You see San Francisco, the top left, top of the peninsula where I'm based. This is a domain that is the operating design domain that's been approved by a local authority for Waymo to operate. They cannot go to the San Francisco airport, but they can go to the San Jose airport, where there is a dedicated platform for robotaxis to pick up and drop off people. So the vehicles are already operating in the areas of Palo Alto, where I used to live, and Mountain View and the like, and San Francisco, and connecting the dots in between, going on freeways, and again, about 800, probably rising now, maybe getting to 1,000 vehicles in that zone. And this gives you an idea of what's coming. This is a picture. There was a picture taken in May at a depot in I think in Arizona, where Waymo is having their vehicles retrofitted by Magna, the Tier 1 supplier. I believe they're 1,800 vehicles, 1,800 vehicles. That's the last batch that Waymo will get, since the vehicle is out of production now, and that's going through a series of retrofits. Redundancy of braking and steering, the installation of the sensors, the compute hardware with specific cooling, extra power, and everything for vehicles to be ready for to be put into the fleets. So that's what's coming. This is a picture that was taken in Japan, in Tokyo, where Waymo has announced they will be deploying the vehicles. This image was taken this summer, and more recently, this past week, Waymo announced that we'll also deploy their vehicles in London in 2026. So whereas we've seen a number of players, we'll come back to Europe, but we've seen a number of players being interested in Europe, and they're being mostly Chinese. Certainly Waymo now is living in the US, at least expanding outside the US, besides expanding to new cities across the US itself. Now, I want to share also with you this Zoox vehicle. It's a four-seater. As you can see, 2 plus 2 facing each other. So it's a very short video that I took a few months ago. If you can stop here. If you can stop this video here. I'll just comment on the Zoox. It's a vehicle that can go up to 120 kilometers in either direction. So bi-directional, four-wheel steering, so that you can go in dead end and back out and continue your ride. It's a short vehicle, less than 4 meters long. That's a design manufactured by Zoox itself here in the Bay Area. So you can see the sensors at all 4 corners, 4 sliding doors. We can see little screens on the side of the seat. That's to control your music and everything. And that vehicle is already available, at least not for the general public, but for specific rides available in San Francisco. And I've been in it a couple of times here on the streets of the city. The next video is about a ride that I took in a Waymo. It was last year. The car came to my home in San Francisco, picked me up. The car came empty, obviously, and here we are going for a ride into the city. The car arrives, like you call it, like an Uber. You open the door from the app, and you jump in it, put your seatbelt on, and there you go, off to the destination. After a few rides, you don't care about what the vehicle does anymore. You just do your mail, listen. You can adjust your music. You can now also set your climate control from the app. You can preset your radio from the app as well before you get into the vehicle, and off you go for your ride. It's more expensive than an Uber or a Lyft. It's 20, 30, 40% more expensive today, but it's more comfortable, right? You know what you get. No variability between drivers. People feel safe, especially women who sometimes feel unsafe with an Uber driver or Lyft driver. And also it's more comfortable because it's a Jaguar, so that justifies the premium price. I suspect also later on that these vehicles, other vehicles will offer low price points, but today that's what we get. So this provides you with I guess, a readout of where we stand today in terms of deployment. The green Waymo boxes are where vehicles are available today to general public. They started in Phoenix in 2019, went on to San Francisco 2023, Los Angeles 2024, and this year, so far, 2 cities have been open, in Dallas, in Texas, and in Atlanta, in Georgia. And more cities will be open in 2026, Miami, Washington, D.C., Seattle, and a few others also that have been that are planned, for which we don't have a date. And Zoox, as you can see, also on the West Coast, was expected to launch in San Francisco, Los Angeles in December last year. They've postponed for safety reason, for good reason, that is. Even though the vehicles are available for on wait list today, or rides available for wait list, I'm on wait list looking forward to doing a public ride, but they should be getting ready to launch. So that's where we stand today in the US. You can see, planned about 12 cities planned. But at the same time, China is going fast. You can see the operators that are operating in China today. Baidu is doing close to 200,000, I think 170,000 paid rides a week. They announced recently 170 compared to 250, so not too far behind. With this dedicated vehicle called the RT6 that supposedly they can build for $30,000, fully equipped, ready to ride on a robotaxi fleet. WillRide is another major player. Pony AI has about 300, 400 vehicles at this point. They announced they were close to 1,000 vehicles by year end. They also, by the way, do autonomous trucks. And Didi, which is the Uber of China, also has its own operation with its own vehicles. So these are the players in China. Again, they're together operating in about 12 cities and expanding in the Middle East, expanding in Europe pretty quickly. So there's a race between Europe and the US and China at this point. Europe being more of a playground, I guess, a next frontier to deploy for these companies to deploy. Now, they're deploying also not just on their own, but also in partnership. And Uber and Lyft, Lyft for those in Europe, is a riding platform similar to Uber that actually coming to Europe now since they bought the platform that Mercedes-Benz and BMW were jointly operating free now. So they're coming to Europe. As you can see here, there are signing partnerships across the globe. As far as Europe is concerned, Uber signed partnership with China's Momenta, with UK's Wave. They also signed several partnerships in North America, UAE, and other parts of the world. And they'll be deploying mostly in 2026. Lyft is doing the same thing. By the way, Uber and Lyft both had a level 4 development operation that they sold respectively in 2021, 2022, because that required too much cash. And also they need to focus on the ride-hailing and food delivery businesses. So that gives you an idea of where we stand today in terms of global deployment. Back to you, Pierre.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And here I also show your details. So thanks, Marc, for sharing that. As you can see, there are a lot of exciting stuff going on, but very, let's say, regional or local. And as you mentioned, it takes a lot of cash actually to get there. Even Uber and Lyft actually had to resell their autonomous driving organization. And again, back to where we left, that one of the reasons is also the cost linked to all the data management. So what we came up with at Heex Technologies is the way to streamline this entire data pipeline by extracting, filtering the most meaningful data directly from the start. So we would basically qualify this as a smart data in opposition to big data, where we can deploy strategic trigger-based logging in order to capture the relevant events. by doing that, then you process and analyze the data that you need, and you streamline the entire pipeline in order to save time, in order to save resources, in order to accelerate your time to market. And to do that, what's pretty unique about Heex Technologies is that we can operate our software, our agent software, both in the cloud, as most of our competitors will do, or even internal project. But we can also operate our agent at the edge, directly in the vehicle. And we will see that is a game changer, especially when you want to scale your operation and then you want to enlarge your fleet or even optimize the way your fleet is being leveraged. Um, Collecting everything, uploading everything in the cloud, and then having tools to process that data is great. We can do that. But having a edge approach where you can capture directly the data that you need directly from your embedded system, whether it's a car, whether it's a off-road vehicle, a drone, or whatever, actually will be essential for the future of scaling your operation. So if we go back to this data collection, data triage, data mining, let's say workflow that we discussed earlier, you'll see that typically it could take up to a few days or a few weeks before there is an actual event and meaningful data set to be exploited, analyzed. And when that data set will be made available to the right person within the organization, whether it's a data scientist, a embedded software developer, and so on. With our technology, with our agent running at the edge directly in the vehicle, in order to continuously monitor all the different data signals coming from sensors, coming from the system itself, coming from the CAN bus. When there is something of interest, then it will automatically trigger a recording according to the data that you need, and potentially even send that data from the edge to the cloud if you have connectivity. That means an event that would normally take a few days, hours, or weeks could basically be available in a few minutes. And this is typically the kind of, let's say, customer project that we currently have with OEMs working on autonomy, level 3, level 4, ADAS functionalities, as Marc mentioned, that used to spend 3 weeks in order to get the data that they need from their test fleet. And now they can get it in a few minutes thanks to our agent being deployed at the edge. And the approach can support a lot of different organizations or teams within your organization, should I say. By changing the way the trigger is defined, then you can get data which will be used for labeling, for MLOps. You can use data which will be used for debugging, for testing, for validation. You just change the way the data and the trigger are being configured in order to get the data that you need. So you're going to save so much time. And once the agent is deployed, there is over-the-air capability that you can centrally deploy a new trigger configuration directly over the air into your entire fleet without to send anyone with the script deploying a new agent in your vehicle to get the new data that you need. So of course, with that approach, you're going to save so much time. As we mentioned, we have customers that basically now are using our solution and they get the data that they need in a few minutes. You entirely automate the process, right? Because the data, by being much smaller and much more efficient, can be directly uploaded from the edge to the cloud without having anyone in the process manually taking SD cards, sending it, putting it on the cloud. So you save so much resources as well. It's more sustainable, right? I mean, by reducing the data, your infrastructure, you can save up to 70, 80, 90% of your data infrastructure costs. And you scale globally, which I guess is one of the challenge today for autonomous driving technology, especially on public road. That scalability is really something that we can support with our approach. A lot of our customers are starting to use our software agent during the R&D and validation phase. That means they still continue to record everything. Why? Because they don't know what they don't know, and they still want to record everything. But by using the agent as a way to process an existing recording in the cloud and to extract the relevant insights, you already save a lot of time. And you are getting prepared for the future of building a pipeline where that approach can be then directly deployed at the edge in a few vehicles, like a test fleet, for example, and then in the future on a mass production fleet. What the industry of software-defined industry, software-defined vehicle industry is now defining as a shadow mode, a way of capturing new events, new edge cases, new situations from cars that are today in operation, that are driving. It's exactly what we can offer with that approach by um, having a very intelligent system that will capture the data that you need even without knowing it for the end user. And the fact that now we offer that agent that can be deployed at the edge and then a centralized cloud-based solution that can control all this triggering and intelligent recording strategy centrally, then it's much more efficient to scale your deployment, because those vehicles will operate at different region, and centrally you can manage the data that you collect, because you're going to have to readjust, refine the trigger according to the specificities of these regions, right? And a company that would in the past have some vehicle fleet drive to collect new data and learn how they operate in Europe, record that on SD card, ship it across the Atlantic Ocean, upload it on their cloud or on their server locally, and then analyze it, and will spend like a month doing that. Then they could basically deploy trigger strategically over the air, and then overnight in the next day get the data that they need directly on dashboard. And that has a huge impact about the acceleration and the scalability of your deployment. And that's exactly what we can offer with our platform. So if I want to summarize some of the key takeaways that we learned today, there is definitely autonomous vehicle momentum. That's what Marc showed us. There are now robotaxi operating in the US. You can pay for the ride, and actually it's pretty enjoyable, but it's still very localized, and it's mostly driven by the US and China. Europe now is still far from it because of data infrastructure, because of regulatory issues, because of lack of partnerships. So that's what we observe as a situation. To scale that deployment, one of the important things that we realize or we observe is that you need data intelligence, not just collecting massively new data. It's very capital intensive. There are a lot of very prestigious companies that shut down their operation because of that. And a new approach regarding data collection, data management is actually necessary. The third point is also how we now need to shift from a pure cloud dependency, collecting everything, putting everything on the cloud, and then having to, analyze, visualize, train the data. This shows great progress, but if you want to now reach the next stage, you need to think about edge intelligence by deploying that strategical data collection directly at the edge. So smart data approach can really be a bridge to that global rollout, both to accelerate your R&D, your validation, but also to have a very intelligent fleet-wide data management dashboard that will help you to deploy in a much faster and much leaner way your operation. So that's the end of, let's say, our overview. What I like to do now, before we address some of the questions that were asked, is maybe Marc, with what you have seen. We actually also met in Germany at IAA, so you don't have only a great look at the US. You also know what's going on in Europe. You're French. What is your vision? Where do you see that AV deployment going in the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, just before I answer that question, maybe just reflect on one thing you said about the importance of data. Uh, I guess ties up with the future. Today we're in a phase where the technology has proven its good level of maturity. I'm not sure, there's still plenty of learnings. There's still, edge cases that have not been seen. I guess we'll never know what can happen on the roads, but certainly the players have demonstrated have reached a high level of safety with reduction in incidents in the tune of 80 to 90% versus regular drivers. So that justifies the scaling. Scaling also means new cities, not just increased fleet size. And new cities means learning. Today, since those players are operating with high definition maps, where every time they go to a new city, they need to map the space. Also, learning specific ways of driving in the cities. There may be, in certain places you're not allowed to turn turn on the red light, which is usual common in the U.S. outside New York City, for instance. So you need to learn certain habits, and this is data. This is data you need to pull from those this initial fleet, and especially if you are far away, like I showed earlier, Waymo, but the same goes for Chinese players are moving into Europe. That's far from their home base. Obviously, you need to have local cloud with data privacy and everything, but nevertheless, you need to move that data from those new cities into the cloud, and that makes it, it's one of the challenges of scaling new cities. However, as we go and as moving to the future elements of your question, as we see new players that are moving away from a combination of machine learning and hard coded elements or rule based software to do the whole stack, to players that are doing an end-to-end machine learning, like Wabi on the trucking side, like Tesla is also doing end-to-end machine learning. And that's a different way to process. It's not rule-based, it's not hard-coded, so it's a single network that goes from collecting data, from picking data from your LiDAR, radar cameras, destination, obviously, IMU, and transforming that into steering and speed instructions. And that requires no maps, but at the same time requires much more data upstream in order to cover more. I understand it takes more data. So that is a different mode, different way to work, but nevertheless, that doesn't change the picture in terms of the way the data and the way to learn data and also learn fast. Because if you detect a certain issue in your fleet, you want to bring that up quickly in order to update your fleet in a certain use case that you just pick up in one corner of the world.
Yeah. That iteration is very important. And
the speed, because you could be blamed for not updating your fleet fast enough once you've learned that there's an issue in one of the vehicle detected an issue in one specific use case.
Yeah.
So looking beyond the US, I'm going to start with that because that's where I'm based, but the US will continue to deploy new cities. We'll see more cities. So I suspect maybe 30, 40 cities by the end of the decade, maybe 50,000 vehicles from the 2,000 that we have today on the roads. In terms of players, Waymo will continue to be the leader. Zoox has a different business model, operating the whole business, covering the whole business. Will scale quickly once they launch. We have another player here, May Mobility, that is much smaller. That is also working with a couple of players like Uber and Lyft. It will be a smaller one, but yet with a presence across several cities. China will see a faster scaling. Today, again, about 12 cities have those robotaxis without a safety operator. I wouldn't be surprised to have maybe 50 cities or more by the end of decades, possibly even over 100,000, couple 100,000 vehicles operating in China by then. Europe is only starting now. We've seen shuttles like Easy Mile, Navia, but this is not the same business, not at all. So robotaxis, we'll start seeing them in 2026 in commercial fleets. And we have several players again. You have the Chinese, you have the US, this Waymo. You have also Wave out of the UK, that will play a role in different countries. Probably first in Germany and the UK. We've seen also WeRide operating with Renault in Madrid, in Paris, more pilot style operations. And once we go, given the interest we see, not just from the industry, but also from the regulators, they don't want to be left behind. So we should see a strong acceleration of this space in Europe in 2026, leading to a few thousand vehicles by the end of the decade, but not scaling at the scale we've seen we're seeing in China certainly. So that's what I anticipate for the next say 5 years.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Marc. I guess we have time for maybe one or two questions that were asked by the audience. So I'm going to show it on screen. There was one question regarding the most overlooked factor in the AV success. We talked a lot about data, right? So I'm not going to be like doing another speech on that. But I think there are maybe other factors, like maybe the business model, the business case, finding a way for your offer to find its market. Maybe regulation. You talked about cruise. We know there was this big incident, and data transparency with the authorities was kind of the issue. What can you say about that, Marc?
Yeah, it's safe. I would say safety and also the perception. More importantly, even the perception of safety.
Yeah.
Lots of people today still distrust robotaxis, even though they've not experienced it. And so being able to have strong safety record and then convince people that of the benefits. In the end, I mean, the pitch that we've seen in this domain since the beginning was reduce loss of lives. In the US, we have about 42,000 lives lost on the roads every year. That's massive. It's probably about twice as many as per capita as we see in Europe. I think 1.5 times when we adjust for number of kilometers driven or miles driven. Still, it's a lot, and so allowing for increased safety is a major success factor. And then the ability to deploy the integration in ride-hailing platforms is certainly a strong accelerator for the deployment of those solutions. A company like Waymo or Zoox only have access to a slice of the market. Uber is certainly a way, or Didi in China provides a way to accelerate the deployment as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Very interesting. And maybe a last question that I think is also good. I would like to hear your thoughts on that. We talked a lot about robotaxis, which kind of, let's say, found an easier business case. What about privately owned AVs? While the using your own car to drive it yourself to the airport, it seems far away. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question. Thank you. Today, a robotaxi is fitted with an expensive hardware. Waymo's vehicle are expected understood to cost in the tune of 150,000 plus. I told you earlier, Baidu said that they can produce a vehicle in the tune of in a $30,000 range. So that's certainly same goes for Pony AI. That's also that shared the fact that they were able to reduce the cost massively. Now, the interesting thing is that we saw a new player emerge 2 months ago in the Bay Area. That's a Sino-American company. Used to be AutoX. Used to operate robotaxis in China. The company was founded in the US, in the Bay Area, in 2016-17, and they came out of stealth mode with a vehicle that is destined to be privately owned, even though it's fitted with all the hardware and software necessary to operate as level 4, with including retractable pedals and steering wheel. So the company is called Tensor, Tensor. You can find it online, tensor.auto, and they are expecting to launch in second semester 2026. Now, this is a big vehicle. It's not like your $30,000 vehicle. Certainly, the idea is for this car manufacturer, new manufacturer, to sell vehicles to people who will be able to operate them autonomously, but also to put them on ride-hailing platforms to generate revenue where they don't use it. This is somewhat the model that Tesla has been pursuing, at least promising. Now they're operating robotaxis today, and the idea being that Tesla owners can put their own vehicles into riding fleets to generate revenue. The other angle is also we've seen Mercedes-Benz and Toyota making similar promises, at least expressing similar intents to offer level 4 vehicles by the end of the decade. By the way, Toyota partnered with Waymo in order to integrate Waymo's tech into the vehicles later in the decade. So we will see autonomous privately owned level 4 vehicles later in the decade, even possibly starting later in 2026 with Tensor. And I'm supposed to go and see the vehicle in the next couple of weeks, the first prototypes in the south end of the bay here. So I'll know a lot more about the vehicle and the plans. But at this point, I suspect that it will be a sliver in the market, given that how many people need level 4. You can drive, level 2, I think, does a great amount of provides a great amount of benefit to users. Certainly for sliver of the market, the high-end market, we'll see interest in level 4. And we'll see how fast it comes down. But we've seen in between level 3 that has difficulty gaining traction versus BMW are offering the technology, but they're not promoting it too much. There are some issues, obviously, liability issues sitting in the middle between in level 3. But back to level 4, yes, there will be vehicles coming out soon, again, in about a year's time. And more to come later in the decade, but still suspect this will remain a sliver of the market, at least for the foreseeable, for the next 10 years or so.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Marc, for your insights, and the overview of the market today was very, very interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. So thanks again for taking your time to share that with us. We are a little bit over time, so I think we will close for now. The replay of the webinar will be available soon on our website. And I put again the information, Marc, if you want to register to the newsletter, if you want to reach out to him, don't hesitate. Marc, thank you again. Have a good
Thanks for having me, Pierre.
And hope to see you soon again in San Francisco.
Yes. I look forward to connecting with people who are online. If you're interested in learning more, not just about autonomous driving, but we can do the same thing, electrification and other automotive technology. So thanks, Pierre, again for having me. All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.